Holy cow, Apple's shares were halted today, January 2nd that is. We haven't even gone through a week of 2019 without some bad Apple news. We're going to talk about what it means when a stock has been halted, what Tim Cook's statement was and means, and what this all means for Apple going forward, right after this. Hey friends, this is Brandon here from This Is Tech Today, your source for honest tech reviews, the news, and my views, and you're watching a special Apple edition of This Is Tech This Week, a show in addition to my other content where I go over tech news from this past week that personally interests me. If that's something that you're interested in, make sure to share, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to be notified when I post a new video, since I'm supposed to be on a break, but Apple just has to drop a bomb on all of us. So just make sure to hit the bell so you know when I post a new video when I come back. First, what does it mean when a stock has been halted? Many of us are not investors or financial experts, and neither am I, I'm just an investor, but this doesn't entirely make a ton of sense to the majority of people. It definitely sounds scary and bad, but that's not always the case. You see, when a stock has been halted, no one is able to actually buy or sell that particular stock. It happens when a technical glitch, a lack of compliance, a significant event or news has occurred or will be announced that will have a notable impact on the stock. They have to make sure that the information is circulated adequately so that investors can make an informed decision. If a stock is not halted, people could make decisions to invest in something that they may not realize is about to drop far. It also helps prevent a lot of anxiety in the market, which, if we're to be honest, is already filled with tons of anxiety and overreacting. This helps slow it down a little bit. Now, Apple is not the only big company that has done this recently. Tesla was halted because Elon Musk tweeted about bringing the company private. It happened to Amazon and Google Alphabet when a glitch occurred and affected the stock price. And even Disney way back in the day when Comcast put in a bid unexpectedly to buy Disney. So what you may have noticed is that all of these scenarios are significant news and events that would have a notable effect on the stock. So it was halted at first and then resumed trading later on. So what was the news from Apple, and was it a good or bad thing? Well, it was mostly bad, but let me translate it as best as I can, and make sure you leave your comments and questions below and join the This Is Tech Today community Discord server. We're a community of kind and helpful people creating the community that we wanted. Join the discussion over there by clicking the link in the description. So the statement that Tim Cook released pertains to what their projections are for the company's first quarter, which, by the way, doesn't align with the calendar year. It reflects the projections for the last 3 months of 2018. That's the holiday season. Well, their projections and guidance is lower than before, which means the holiday season wasn't too good for them. Before, they had a projection for revenue at a peak of $93 billion, but have adjusted that down to $84 billion. That's a $9 billion difference. If you're not aware of it, Apple's iPhone sales accounted for over $37 billion in revenue in the fourth quarter of 2018, which, as a reminder, is a different quarter than what Tim made a statement about today. Still, this decrease is nearly a quarter of what the revenue was for quarter 4. This is massively significant, but we also have to remember that this reflects actual revenue from the quarter before the holiday season. Now, Tim provided reasons for why the iPhone has not sold well, and I have some clarification and thoughts for some of the statements. By the way, you can watch an interview with him on CNBC, and it's really interesting, and I've never seen him look so nervous before. There's a link for it down in the description. First, he said that the iPhone 10, not the XS, was released in what was quarter 1 for 2018. For the iPhone XS and XS Max, they were released earlier than the iPhone 10 was in the calendar year, and it doesn't cleanly fit into what would be quarter 1 for 2019. Instead, the iPhone XR was released during that time, which is the holiday season. First, that points out to a poor execution strategy, and I honestly think that that just puts a fog over the reality that the iPhone XS and XS Max didn't sell well either. In the end, the iPhone, whatever model, didn't sell well. Second, he said that the US dollar growing stronger would create foreign exchange changes that would reduce their revenue growth by 200 basis points. What does all that mean? So to translate that, a basis point is 1/100%. So we can just translate that simply to say that revenue growth would decrease by 2% compared to last year. Third, he said that the unprecedented number of new products created supply chain constraints and would limit the sales of some of their products because of that. Well, as I've said in previous videos, especially the one up here, there are too many products in a lineup and it is too confusing to the buyer. And if Tim Cook, the supply chain guru, recognizes that there are more products in the lineup than ever before, maybe it's time to cut the lineup down to a few items and stop making everything so confusing and overwhelming to buy. Like I've said before, when Steve came back to Apple, he cut the lineup. He was the type that kept it simple. He would tell you that there's an iPod, and then he would tell you that there is a black version and a white version. and then ask you, what size storage did you want? It was that simple. Fourth, he pointed at emerging markets like China and India, which should be included, that they weren't buying iPhones for a number of reasons. He's blamed things on the president's decisions regarding trade, which is a valid point. My last video talked about how China was rejecting Apple because of this, but a large part of the rejection is a result of value per dollar. There are many phones out in emerging markets like China and India that offer close to the same specs, quality, or features for hundreds of dollars less. If a 1,000 plus iPhone is a hard sell for developed markets, how do you think it'll perform in emerging markets? He did go on to say that there were issues with developing markets, which is essentially US, Canada, etc. And he pointed out that there are fewer carrier subsidies to discount the price of the phone like in the old days. This would indicate again that the prices of the phones are too high and people don't want to pay for the thing even if the cost is broken up into monthly installments. This is one of the reasons why they're pushing the trade-in deal so much. He also pointed out that inflation has caused the price to rise and that people would rather replace the batteries on their iPhones instead of buying a new phone. Now, if you don't remember what that was about, in 2017, it was discovered that Apple was throttling or limiting the performance of your phone if the battery health reached a certain point. This wasn't disclosed, so people would often just replace their phone because it started to run slow. When it was discovered that Apple is slowing the phones down artificially without disclosing, people understandably got upset. To make up for that, Apple offered to replace iPhone batteries for $29 instead of the normal price of $79. This deal ended on the 1st of 2019. When people realized they could fix their issues by spending $29, and heck, even now less than $100, their phones would work well again. They're choosing that over spending upwards of over $1,000 for the iPhone XS or XS Max. I can't really blame them, and I really think this is a no-brainer. The prices are too high, and people want to save money. On the macroeconomic level, the economy is slowing, so keep that in mind as well. In addition, I think a lot of people are continuing to avoid the iPhone XS and other gesture-based iPhones because they're so used to the home button and the headphone jack. So, what does all this mean going forward? Let's take a look at the investor side of things. Based on what I've seen before in stock changes, and keep in mind, I'm not a financial expert or anything, but I've often seen that the next day when negative news like this has gone out, there's a further drop in the stock price. You see, the drop that we've seen so far was a negative 7.55%, which is close to $50 billion in market valuation lost in after hours market trading. This is a limited pool of people, so not everyone can trade in after hours. Once the market opens tomorrow, you'll likely see a lot of people selling off their stock that want to get out of this bad situation once they're able to. Despite that, it may be worth talking to a financial advisor on whether or not this is a good buying opportunity if you wanted to start investing in Apple. I do like to follow Warren Buffett's advice: be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. What I can say is that the stock price changes are the result of investor expectations and Apple not meeting them. Apple is still profitable. Some things that will likely happen going forward will reflect the investor wish list that I talked about in my last video. One of the items involves Apple buying back stocks at a significantly lower amount than planned in their already disclosed and scheduled buyback plan this year. That means that they're like acquiring more of the shares themselves. The other wish list item was diversifying their income streams, specifically with software and services. What is problematic is how over-leveraged or how much of Apple's revenue comes from just the iPhone, which accounts for over 50% of the revenue. Any negative change that happens to the iPhone hurts them a lot, and the market is saturated here domestically and abroad with iPhones. They need to diversify their revenue streams to involve their software and services where they make money off of transaction fees like Apple Pay, the App Store, and then income from iCloud, Apple Music, and other services like that. And I always want to be as objective and unbiased as I can be. So to be fair, this area has grown 70% year over year, so they're heading in a good direction, but this will inevitably slow if people stop buying new devices. If less and less people have iPhones, then less people will use the services that make Apple money, which leads me to what may be next as it pertains to the everyday consumer, you and me. So the investors are aware of what affects the everyday consumers. They've realized that the prices for the iPhones are too high. So in the wish list, they asked for the price of iPhone to go down. I think Apple will either price the next round of iPhones at a more competitive price, or even do what we've never expected: lower the price of the existing iPhones without needing a trade-in to encourage more sales. We'll also see them work and invest in new technologies or services that make the products unique and valuable to Apple. Many of you have said in the comments in my previous videos that Apple seems to be just coasting by without taking any risks like they used to. Steve had this to say about Apple's role in their products.
They're paying us to make those choices. That's what a lot of customers pay us to do, is to try to make the best products we can. And if we succeed, they'll buy them. And if we don't, they won't. And it'll all work itself out.
So maybe it's time for Apple to make the best products possible again, because people have spoken up and they aren't buying the iPhone like they used to. There's no need to be honest. The products they have now are good enough and don't need to be upgraded as often. The new options aren't compelling enough, or they're so different from what they're used to, or they're too expensive to obtain. So my questions for you are, what do you think would cause people to upgrade their iPhones? And what services or feature would you pay for from Apple? Let me know in the comments and on the This Is Tech Today community Discord server. This may be the year that we see a new vigor from Apple to turn things around and find that spark that was once there. Honestly, we should want that. Competition is good for all of us. If they don't turn things around, could we see a new Apple CEO in 2020? I guess we'll find out. That's it. Make sure to check out my last video where I talked about how Chinese companies were rejecting Apple and how investors had a wish list of items that they wanted Apple to fulfill in 2019, or things will get ugly. And it's already ugly. So make sure you share, subscribe, hit that bell icon if you haven't already. Thank you for watching This Is Tech Today. You just watched This Is Tech This Week. Until next time. Oh, and hey, have a great day.